All right, well, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, everyone. So my name is Elena Sinel. I'm the founder of Teens in AI. This is the third day of the Inspiration Week. This is done to celebrate Women's Month and also International Women's Day. And on the third day, we are going to be talking to two very special guests. One is already on your screens. And her name is Cadence Willis. She's all the way, from England today, but originally from Australia, she told me. And you will hear that from her accent. She's joining us from the SAGE Foundation, and Cadence is working with SAGE colleagues, customers, and partners. And their mission is to tackle societal and economic inequality through investment in education. And she's going to talk to us about why this really matters to her and to the SAGE Foundation. Cadence is also on the board of London-based social enterprise called Abianda. Correct me if I'm mispronouncing it. And they work with young women affected by gangs and counterlines. So this is really, really interesting. She's also a mom of 3 school-aged children. So Cadence, welcome. So great to have you here with us. And we've got some more children joining us, and we'll be admitting them as you speak. But it's over to you now.
Thanks, Elena. And hi, everyone. I see in the chat here that we've got an amazing mix already. Some from people from Italy, Tanzania, oh gosh, all everywhere. So it's brilliant. It's so great to have a geographic mix on the call. As Elena said, I'm from Australia originally, now based in the UK. And I'm really excited to be joining your Inspiration Week today, representing SAGE. I see you've got some amazing speakers that you've already had and that you've got planned for the rest of the week. So I hope you're enjoying those sessions and that I can hopefully add something valuable into the mix. As I mentioned, I lead SAGE Foundation. And for those of you who haven't heard of SAGE, SAGE was born around 40 years ago in a pub in Newcastle here in the UK, as the brainchild of a local entrepreneur who sparked a digital accounting revolution. Since that time, we've now grown to 11,000 strong colleagues around the world, and today one of the UK's biggest technology companies.
Today's sorry about that.
No worries.
Let's just mute everyone once again.
No worries.
And Cadence, could you unmute yourself? Everyone, do keep yourself muted so that we don't have any interferences. Sorry about that.
No worries at all. So we've got about 11,000 colleagues now around the world. And like I mentioned, we're one of the UK's biggest technology companies, which is quite an amazing achievement from an idea born in a pub 40 years ago. And we work with millions of businesses in all types of industries around the world. SAGE Foundation was established in 2016, and with the real purpose to bring to life SAGE's ambition for social impact. We believe that we should be in a world where everyone can thrive because they're living with economic stability and social equality. And we know, unfortunately, that not everyone is born with or given an equal chance, and that discrimination, bias, a lack of education, unequal access to technology, they're creating barriers for people to succeed. And so I'm really proud to be leading a team alongside my job share partner, Helen, where we invest in education, technology, and environmental change to give individuals, communities, and our planet the opportunity to do just that and to thrive. We have a number of global projects and programs, and our goal is to use our technology, time, and experience to back the next generation of diverse and sustainable businesses, many of which one day I'm hoping might be started by some of the young people on our call today. So yeah, that's what brings me here. Outside of work, I think you mentioned I'm a mum to 3 kids, 2 who are at secondary school, and I really understand how complicated life is for our young people. You've got family and friend commitments, and I know that we don't just have young people on the call. By the way, we've got a real mix, but I'm speaking more to our young people on the call. That there's perhaps you've got some of our young people have got a pressure to earn an income. They might have loved ones that they're caring for. Real concerns. I know, speaking to my daughter about the environment around a war. Social media pressures. daily. Some young people have got a really amazing idea about what they want to do in the future, and others have got no idea whatsoever. And that's okay. When I was at school, I wanted to be on to host a travel show. I wanted to travel the world, showing people all these amazing beaches and all these places that they could visit. Didn't quite get there, but I have done a fair amount of travel. And I think concepts of like AI, machine learning, design thinking, STEM careers, they can all seem quite abstract. And unless you are really sure about how you want to, which path you might want to take, sometimes almost a bit unattainable and like they don't apply. And so I think when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about today, in the topic of, given in the theme of Inspiration Week, I didn't want to deliver a big corporate speech with a whole heap of PowerPoint slides, etc. But I thought maybe I could shine a light on some of the opportunities available to young people in this space based on what we see in our work, and to perhaps challenge you to think a little bit differently about the future that is artificial intelligence. So that's where I'm coming from. AI, as I'm sure that you don't need me to tell you, is changing the world. It's powering many inventions in almost every area of our lives, and this pace is increasing. I'm blown away by the fact that doctors can now predict breast cancer in women at early stages using advanced AI technologies. My son talks to Google in the morning before he talks to me. And it won't be long before we're just jumping in autonomous vehicles and they're driving us around everywhere, and that's mind-blowing. Bringing it back to what we do at Sage, we're using machine learning and AI to help our customers save time and to elevate human work. So to spend that really rich time doing what humans can do best. And we're helping these small and medium businesses to use data insights or predictions about their business and building applications to help them gain advantage from those insights and help them run smarter, more digital businesses. This pace of change is something that I'm only too aware of, in that it's opening up all these amazing career opportunities and routes into employment that didn't exist last year, let alone 5 years ago. I was Googling weird and wonderful tech careers, and one really stood out to me, and this was the digital overlord. And I don't know if everyone's heard of a digital overlord, but essentially I thought, what is a digital overlord? It sounds like someone trying to take over the world, but it's actually a term that typically represents website managers. And I thought that was really interesting. So maybe go away and do have a bit of a Google yourself. But there are so many, just one example of some of the amazing careers and jobs that are popping up in this space. But one thing that for me personally, I think is really keen to remember, and this is that with this opportunity really does come an incredible amount of responsibility. And I think we've probably all seen how machine learning and chatbots have come under scrutiny, rightly so, for bias towards gender, age, race, ethnicity. There's many examples that you don't need me to go into on this call, but I believe that it's all of our responsibility, and particularly for people just entering the industry with new ideas and the rest of your career ahead of you, to ensure that we work to use AI for good, and to use the advancements in technology to innovate and improve the lives of those around us. We asked a group of young people how they would use AI to solve social justice problems or issues in their local communities when we hosted an AI workshop in Johannesburg in South Africa. This was a couple of years ago now, so things I'm sure have moved on quite a bit since then. But there was a story when I asked our team for ideas about what to speak about today that one of my colleagues told me. I've got my sons just come into the room, the joys of having young people. Excuse me for a second. So I'd like to tell you a story about a young man called Blessing. I think this is a really relevant example because it talks about how learning AI can be applied in a really meaningful way. He was 17 years old when we met him, and he lived in Mamelodi in Pretoria. And his cousin, who was two years older than him, called Takunda, was born deaf. They grew up together, were best friends and always looking out for each other. But Blessing never had the ability to learn sign language, so their communication was really limited. And when Takunda was younger, he was at a family function, and Blessing was meant to be looking out for him. All the guests were inside and Takunda was outside, and he got he got mauled by a stray dog, and they couldn't hear him calling for help. And when they did find him, they found it really hard to understand what happened and for him to communicate the severity of how he was. And one of the things that Blessing discussed as part of this workshop was that he thought that maybe technology could have played a role in helping them to alert what was happening. And then went on to elaborate on a couple of other examples of where that barrier for communication between the two of them had been such an issue. And he told the story of Takunda's first kiss, and actually how he wishes he could have shared that excitement with him, all the butterflies and nervousness that comes with that moment as a young person. And he sort of spoke about how he wondered what it would be like to communicate with him easily and freely, and what if they could talk to each other without having to learn a new language, and what if technology was smart enough that he could film Takunda signing, and as he signs, having an AI or an app or something that was able to tell him what he was saying, and better yet, if he could teach a machine or a bot to use the camera to read sign language and to dictate the words to him. And it just that he spoke about how that case study alone would open up a whole new world, not just for their relationship, but also for their community and others more broadly. Now Blessing, before doing this course, he wanted to be an architect because he wanted to help design, amazing buildings, etc. And that was his goal. But actually, he now wants to be a program developer or a data scientist, and to start with, to learn how to use technology to help solve an issue that's really, really close to his heart. Now, I'm not quite sure where he is in that journey, but that was a story that really touched our team at the time, because this is a young person really thinking about how using these new skills that he was learning could be applied to really help someone and potentially change someone's life. And I think the skills that young people are learning today, when it comes to artificial intelligence, machine learning, design thinking, they're going to open up so many amazing opportunities. And my challenge to all the young people on this call, and others, would be to think about keeping ethics at the forefront of everything that you do, and to do the right thing when using these powerful skills. Because I think the potential to solve some of the, this could be seen as a small issue, but there's potential to solve, someone like, Takunda's ability to communicate with his cousin through to big global issues is just, the opportunity is endless. But I think if we make sure that we keep ethics front of mind, there's a real opportunity there for us to do a great deal of good. And I think too, bringing it back to education, you don't need a degree in data science to have a career in technology. So I work for a tech company, and I probably would think that most of you think I don't look like I'm a techie. I don't have a background in technology, in data science. I went to university and studied communications, but I now work for one of the UK's biggest technology companies, looking at the impact we want to have in our communities and working with some of our technology teams to make that happen. And that's an amazing privilege and opportunity. At Sage, again, you don't need to be a coder to work at Sage or any tech company, actually. We're looking for creative thinkers, people with an appetite to learn, who thrive in a fast-paced and challenging environment, people who love to ask, what if, and that whole blue sky thinking, the art of the possible. We call it bold, bold thinking, and people who want to make a difference and use their skills in a unique way. I was asked to think about what I would say to my younger self if I was speaking to myself today. And I thought that was a really interesting question, because I would say to my younger self to not be too worried, as in, I think when you're young, everyone's got really well-meaning advice around what courses you should study, or what pathway you should take, or who you should speak to, or what you should or shouldn't do. And I think that don't be too constrained. It's me talking to myself about what people say you should be doing. To be courageous and creative, and that there are many paths to success, and that success, it looks different to different people. And that I think, particularly when you're younger, there's perhaps a pressure to surround yourself with the sorts of people that you feel you should surround yourself with, not necessarily the ones that you want to. And I think surrounding yourself with your kind of people is something I would definitely say to my younger self. And people with the right values, ethics, empathy, and to look for opportunities to learn and be bold, because I think you only get to be young once, and you only get, and I don't think, you don't want to waste it. So that's sort of where I bring it back to when I think about me as a younger self. And I think actually I've probably been fairly true to that, to be honest. I'm now I think you mentioned, Elena, I'm Australian, I live in the UK. I've got the privilege of leading an amazing global team focused day in, day out on knocking down barriers in communities and improving people's lives. And I think I would, if someone had asked me 20 years ago if that's what I'd be doing today, I would not have thought that's what I would be doing at all. So, and I think very much that that curiosity and that ability to learn and try new things has sort of really been a thread that has continued throughout my career. So I'm going to leave it there, and I hope maybe that I've given a little bit of an insight into some of the ways in which we've seen AI discussed and applied, both at work and in the communities where we work, and a little bit about me. So I'm very happy to open the floor. No question's a silly question. Over to you.
I would like to ask our young audience and older audience as well, because we have a range of participants here today. If you have any questions, do please add them in the chat, and we will definitely ask them to Cadence. But Cadence, thank you so much. That was really inspiring, and thank you for sharing your story and for offering all of this advice. So like you, I'm also not a technologist, so I don't code and I'm not doing anything technical in my day-to-day job. And nonetheless, I'm completely in agreement with you that we need everyone in these conversations and in technology. And I know it took me a while to convince my daughter to also kind of explore different things, different roles. And finally, eventually she joined IBM and doing something a lot more technical than she expected to do as an apprentice. But to begin with, she told me straight away, "Mommy, I'm not going to be a coder. It's boring. I don't really like it." She was more drawn to ethics, design thinking. And I said, "That's absolutely fine. Every technology company needs people like you who, soft skills, communication, is her forte." And I said, that's exactly what every company needs, somebody who thinks differently, but not necessarily a coder. So that's fantastic. I wanted to ask you some questions around, some of the difficulties we've had during the pandemic, because what we found globally is that we have quite a lot of disconnected people, particularly within education. We've had a lot of young people who couldn't really pursue their passions. They couldn't even connect to some of the basics of education. And I wanted to understand, what challenges have you had at Sage Foundation trying to reach communities during such difficult times of pandemic, and how did you overcome it? Have you had any successful examples of technology that you are inspired by that have managed to facilitate that access to the communities that really need it the most?
Great question. So I think I'll start that answer by saying that I've actually been with Sage for 3 months. So this is my first official public speaking opportunity representing the foundation. And before that, did a similar role with a couple of other organizations. So I might draw on a few of those experiences. But I would say that as when speaking to the team about within our foundation about what it was like transitioning during COVID to an online environment, they actually moved quite quickly. I think we were quite lucky insofar as we had really good technology available to us, exactly that way we're using now. The ability to video conference, to be able to take our programs online happened quite quickly. A lot of hard work, but also our charity partners also pivoted quite quickly too. The ones that weren't able to so quickly, we obviously tried to support and provide that support to do so. But I would say that we were very lucky insofar as we had a developed network. We're a global organization that had, we're already using Teams, Zoom, others to connect, and we're used to working that way. So I think that was thank goodness for that technology, because without it, we would have found it really hard to continue mobilizing our people. When it comes to inspiration, I think I really take inspiration from some of the digital work that happened, particularly here in the UK, around giving school students and communities that didn't necessarily have devices access to those. So I was involved with a program that helped to get devices to families who didn't have access, and particularly from a homeschooling point of view, that was a real barrier to their children having education, and seeing how transformative that was. And these were not really high-tech devices or high-tech software solutions or anything like that. This was just basic access, actually. It transformed the way in which their children could access technology. And I think that was probably one of the things that reminded me, actually, that it doesn't necessarily have to be a really big, all singing, all dancing digital solution. Sometimes it's just as simple as giving people, the key to kind of open that door. So I think that was probably one of the takeaways for me during the pandemic.
Yeah, no, I agree. I found it also as a mom very challenging to be a mom and run a business. Yes. And have my 8-year-old suddenly pop up in front of my screen here as I'm leading a meeting and whatnot. I think we've all felt the challenges. But some of the other questions I've got here, so I know we've got some more already by the young people here, so I'll read those out to you. But I have another question. Are there any particular examples of technology that you are really excited about, other than the ability to do video conference, either in health or even education, or somewhere where you feel, wow, this isn't something I have had the opportunity to use as you were growing up, for instance, but right now with the cutting edge technology, is there anything that you are really inspired by?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's cutting edge, okay, but I am very inspired by it. And this is how creative some remote communities are when it comes to accessing energy, right? Which we know we need to power, to power a lot of these technologies. So I saw a story recently about remote communities where they've got donkey solar. So there's solar charging panels on the side of these donkeys that are going up to these remote villages, where people can then plug in their devices and use them to either for school or for work. And I thought to myself, wow, that is definitely a way to connect. And I think it's just going to show how the people are using this technology on a small scale technology, things like solar, to really access energy, but also then technology in a way that we've never done before, and where, like I say, we're connecting with remote communities in places that we were never able to. So I think that's something that really inspires me, as looking at how people use these solutions. So I know it's not a tech one particularly, but if you don't have access to energy, then you can't power your your technology. So I think that was something that I really caught my mind recently.
Absolutely. And during your talk, you mentioned the importance of ethics being at the forefront of everything we do. And we do talk about ethics in every single hackathon and every program we run for young people. Why is it such an important aspect to cover? We've had some terrible things that have recently happened that have been highlighted in media. But why is it something that we should all focus on, and what would be the implications of us ignoring that very fact, that the responsibility of us as developers of technology?
Mm-hmm. So very mindful that I'm not a technologist when answering this question, but I think, as my view is that apart from it being the right thing, I think the reputational risk is significant. So I'm sure some of the case studies you've discussed in your hackathons around actually when you get it wrong, and it might not, a lot of the time it's not intentional. It could be from an unconscious bias point of view. It could be something that's just been an oversight, but it reputationally has the risk of destroying an organization, a product, an individual, from a career point of view. it has this huge ramifications. From a societal point of view too, it doesn't help the reputation of some of these technologies that we're all talking about, and the ability for them to break down barriers and to address bias and to help solve big societal issues. The potential there is incredible, but every time one of these case studies or one of these examples hits the press, it impacts people's view towards the technology, and I think that's a real pity, because we know how the potential here. So that's my take on it. And also from a next generation point of view, I think that the potential for our young people to take perhaps and to learn from some of these lessons, some of these hard lessons maybe, is one that I think is really, really relevant. So yeah, the ethics, I'm really pleased to hear that that's front and center of everything, all the work of Teens in AI.
Yes, we very much do. And like you, I'm hoping that the next unicorn will be born in the bedroom of teenagers, like it actually was already. If you remember, Stripe, which is one of the biggest fintechs, was actually originally born in the bedroom of two teenage brothers in Ireland. Very close to where we are right now. And so and I know there are some of the other examples, and if you join us on Friday, you will hear from Kudus, who is based in UAE and is very, very successful inventor, a technology that has already got quite a few very powerful venture capitalists backing his inventions. So definitely come back on Friday to hear from Kudus.
Amazing.
So questions asked by Maureen. So I'm going to read out some of them, and perhaps Cadence, you will have a chance to respond to them before we would also welcome our second speaker, who I know is already on the call.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm mindful about not taking up too much of her time. She's an amazing speaker.
Yes, Rachel, I know you're already on the call, and we'll come to you next. So there is definitely a question. All right, so first from Maureen.
I did have a read of the question there around how to give access to people that don't live in a location that has access to electricity and the like. I would. We work with a couple of charities actually, who one of them is called Light Humanity, and another one called Solar Buddy, who focus on getting solar energy to communities and living in energy poverty, which opens up a vast array of education and learning and in time technology opportunities, but recognizing that access to energy is such an important part of that. And they work with some of the most remote communities, giving them the little solar capabilities, and it all sort of starts from there. So I think if you have a look at those two organizations, there's some really good examples there. I'm sorry if I didn't answer the full question of what you said, Maureen. It was hard to hear on the line there.
Yes, the same here. And we've got another question here. How can you measure the impact of giving devices? What are the KPIs that you can use as a company?
So I think measurement absolutely is really critical, and I'd say that there's still more work to be done around that. We use a framework called B4SI, which is Business for Societal Impact, and it tracks all of your inputs from your financial through to your in kind and your outputs as a result of that, and the impacts. So we put it through that framework, which is then verified, and it gives us an idea as to how many people we're able to impact and support through our various through all of our programs actually. So that's the approach that we take to measure impact, but understanding that not everything's as clear cut as that. So sometimes it's someone picking up the phone and thanking you and telling us a story about how it's assisted them, or like I say, seeing or speaking to a family who's received or been the beneficiary. So I think you've got the quantitative definitely, but the qualitative I think is so very important, because it gets you to really feel how, and see the impact that you're making directly.
And I have the last question that I'm going to take, and that came through as direct message. Yubi, thank you so much. What advice would you give to students who have not decided their career path or don't know where their interests are?
Oh, great question. Okay, so I love this, because I think I think I remember being at school and seeing everyone around me who knew what they wanted to do. And I found it really hard because I wasn't exactly sure. Like I say, I had this TV dream, but I really wasn't sure if that was going to pan out and didn't really know what direction I wanted to go in. But my advice would be that just go with what you enjoy. I think if you follow what you enjoy and what you're interested in, the rest sort of sorts itself out eventually. And I think that, you know, it's okay if you don't know right now what you want to do. Just follow what interests you and what's important to you, and do some research and find out what others are doing. I think I actually asked our recruitment team the other day, our early years recruitments, these are people that bring in apprentices and graduates, what they look for in graduates and apprentices, and what would be their main bit of advice to a young person looking at, you know, at careers right now. And they said would be to sign up to LinkedIn. And I thought, why would a young person at 16 want a LinkedIn account? And they said, because it gives you access to a world that generally as a student you don't have access to. You can go on there and you can search every company, you can connect with a whole range of like amazing professionals in areas that you didn't even know existed, and reach out to them. There's so many people on there, very happy to have conversations, find a mentor, find out what it looks like to be the chief technologist at you know, at one of the at an organization that you're interested in working in, or a social impact officer, or you know, a design, you know, a designer, whatever the route is that you're interested in. Start to immerse yourself in that world. And I think some of those technology platforms we've got available to us are a great way of doing that. And like I said at the end there, don't put too much pressure on yourself. You've got a long time and to really figure that out, and you should enjoy the journey, not just the destination.
100%. Yes, I always also recommend to volunteer in various organizations, because again, as you volunteer, you learn so many different skills, and you again build your network. If you don't have a chance, an opportunity, or you're shy to network on LinkedIn, which can also be a barrier, or you might be too young as well, because I think for LinkedIn, I wouldn't recommend to join unless you're, you know, 16 and it's a bit safer, because you never know. But definitely volunteering in local organizations in causes you're really passionate about, whether it's climate or something else. I remember my very first job came through volunteering. I joined as a volunteer, and then they liked me so much they offered me a job. So
there you go. Yeah, I also volunteered in my first job, and that's how I got a job. So yeah, I completely agree with you there.
Yeah. So, but definitely exploring your passions is really something, and trying as many things and saying yes to many things at your age is really, really important. Definitely. All right. Well, Cadence, thank you so much. That was amazing. Incredible to have you today with us. And I really hope you and your children will join us tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm going to let my kids know when I get off the call. They're going to be very pleased.
Please do, because they're of that age where they'll probably also be asking the same question as all of the young people here as well. So please do join us tomorrow as well. And if there are any opportunities for young people at Sage, and I have been stalking your careers page, and I couldn't find any apprenticeships, but maybe I missed some. So please.
There is definitely. If you go to the Sage website and search early careers, there's a whole heap of information there around apprenticeships and graduate schemes. Also, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very happy to make some connections too. So yeah, practice what you preach, and yeah, I think don't be afraid to reach out.
Yeah, and I'm going to send you an email, and if you could send me some links for apprenticeships, it would be fantastic, because I think we have a lot of young people who are very keen to apply. Many of them, unfortunately, are global, so it probably might not apply to them if their apprenticeships are in the UK, but still it's worth keeping an eye, because Sage is a very global organization, and there may well be apprenticeships and internships where you live. So definitely check it out. All right, well, thank you so much, Cadence.
No worries. Thanks, Elena. So nice to see you all today.
And you too.